Hi guys, welcome to today's episode. So, as you probably know, I'm a physicist. My expertise is in physics. I know very little about biology. For today's episode, I wanted to meet an expert and learn all about the immune system, about viruses, about bacteria, and to really understand what it's all about. So I came here to the Trinity College Biomedical Sciences Institute to meet just that expert. Let's go find him. We found our biological expert. I'm here with Professor of Immunology at Trinity College Dublin, Professor Luke O'Neill. Thanks for having us, Luke.
Happy to be here, Dan. Welcome to my office, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, so, being a physicist, I'm a little bit ignorant in all these biological things, so I have some questions for you. So we're hearing a lot about viruses these days, and I'm really curious about what exactly a virus is. I mean, they seem to be able to outsmart us. Like, does a virus have a brain?
Not really, Dan. No, they're tiny, tiny, tiny things. I have one here, by the way, as a prop. There you have it.
Okay.
That's the famous COVID-19 virus now. Isn't that incredible?
All right. So
now, that's been magnified 30 million times, okay? So, in other words, if I shrank that down 30 million times, then I'd have a little single COVID-19
And what
sample.
are all these things?
So these are called spike proteins. So what it is, viruses are basically little bags. In the middle of the bag is the recipe to make a virus. In the case of COVID-19, it's called RNA, the name of the molecule, and that is the recipe. That has to go inside your cells, though, to make a copy of itself. So they're pretty primitive things, really.
Okay, and how do they know what to do? How do they know
Well,
to attack us?
well, it's evolution, you see. So this virus evolved these things called spike proteins. They stick into your lungs. And now the virus goes inside your lungs and begins to use the machinery of your lungs to make copies of itself. And all viruses are like that. They're evil little parasites, really. They have to live inside us. And they use our own cells then to replicate, to make copies of themselves.
Okay, so in a weird way, like, obviously the name computer virus came from a virus. So if I think of a computer virus, you hack into a computer and you make it do something that it's not supposed to do. And that's kind of what a virus is doing.
It is, and they spread from one computer to another. Virus is all about spreading, you know. So a computer virus will go from one computer to another. It goes viral. That means spreading, you see. So in essence, what viruses do is they spread and they divide and make billions of copies of this. So if this was in my lungs now.
Yes.
It'd make billions and billions of copies of itself. And then would start spreading and maybe go from me into you. And of course, the big issue is, how do I stop you getting infected? But viruses spread from person to person is the idea.
Okay, right. And another question I have for you, Luke. When I'm in the doctor's office, I always hear about viruses and bacteria when they're talking about germs. What's the difference between a virus and a bacteria? And is one more dangerous than the other?
Yes, the bacteria are bigger. They're much bigger than a virus. Maybe 10,000 times bigger. And they're pretty self-contained. They have all the machinery to make copies of themselves already. They can go in your body, though, and live inside your body, just like you live in wherever you live in your house and so on. Bacteria live inside people's bodies. There are bacteria everywhere, though. Bacteria live on plants. They live in your fridge. They're everywhere, but they're pretty self-contained organisms. They can do everything on their own almost. You know?
So is a bacteria more like almost like a creature?
Yeah, it's more like our own cells, really. They've got a nucleus. They've got bits that that's wrong. They don't have a nucleus, but they've got bits that look similar to our cells in a way. They can eat food and divide and make copies of themselves anywhere in the world. Whereas viruses have to go inside another organism. They have to go inside a cell, actually, and that's where they copy themselves.
Okay, so that's the difference between bacteria and viruses. And do we have different ways of attacking, of like fighting against bacteria and fighting against viruses?
We do. The big breakthrough was in the 1920s. They found a drug to kill bacteria. It's called penicillin, you see, and that can kill bacteria. That's made by a fungus, by the way, to kill bacteria that infect it. In other words, fungi evolved a chemical to kill bacteria, you see. And then all antibiotics are based on penicillin, really. So that was a big breakthrough of the 20th century. And they killed bacteria and stop infections, you see. And some bacteria cause awful diseases. And yet these antibiotics can kill them. Viruses are a bit difficult to kill. Because they're using your own cells, remember. So if you block something there, you might have a toxic side effect, you know. So it's much more difficult to get an antiviral drug. There are antiviral drugs out there. HIV, the one that causes AIDS, for example. There's an antiviral that kills that virus. So that's quite useful.
So the viruses are typically more dangerous or harder to fight than the bacteria?
They are absolutely more dangerous and more difficult to fight, precisely. Now, of course, what you have, Dan, is your immune system.
Yes.
That's
what I was going to ask next,
You have a built-in set of weapons, which evolved, of course, to kill bacteria or to kill viruses. And that's where the real action is, I suppose. You know, if your immune system works properly, you kill these infections and you don't get sick.
And what I'm curious about, being a physicist and never having studied this, is how the immune system actually kills something. Like, what does it do? Does it zap it? Does it do something? Does it eat it? And also, a second question is, how do you get a strong immune system?
Yeah.
Like, do we know how to do that? Or
How long have you got? So the immune system is intensely complicated. There's about 50 different cell types in your immune system. Different, like soldiers. I mean, the immune system is like an army, really. You know.
Okay.
And imagine you got an invader. All these different cell types. Some are like the general. Some are the troops on the ground.
Okay.
Some are aircraft bombing things. Many chemicals are made naturally to kill things. So we have all these things that can kill bacteria on contact. Viruses are a bit trickier. Now, a good example is antibodies, these special molecules, right? Your immune system makes these proteins, they lock onto the virus and kill it. So there's natural chemicals that your body can make to
kind of like chemical warfare in your body.
Exactly like, they are chemicals, so it's like chemical warfare precisely. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thanks so much, Luke. And another thing I was wondering, I'm going to get as much use of you as I can while I have you here, is when you catch a cold, and I know that the cold is a virus, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
So can you catch a cold by going outside in cold weather with a t-shirt? Like by being cold, can you catch a cold? Or is that completely wrong?
Not really. I mean, we get more colds in the winter because we're indoors more.
Okay.
And the cold jumps from me to you see, just like COVID-19. So that's one reason why colds go up in the winter. We think some cold viruses do like colder weather maybe, and they hang on the breeze a bit. And the cool temperature suits them. So maybe there's an element of cold weather driving the cold as well. That could be part of it.
Yeah, I was always curious about that, if a cold actually came from being cold. Okay, so I have a little baby at home, and I'm curious if that baby is in a really sterile, clean environment, or if that baby is in a kind of a muddy kind of environment around different dirt and stuff like that, will that affect what his immune system is like when he grows up?
Yeah, big time, Dan. I mean, you got to think back what it was like in the Stone Age. We lived outside a lot. We were in the dirt, you know.
Yes.
And our immune system needs a bit of dirt because what happens is it learns, you know. So when you're a baby or a small child, you've got to get a bit of dirt because the immune system can now train itself to recognize the enemy, you know, and prepare itself for the battle. If you're too clean, the immune system never learns properly and then can go into overdrive. And think allergy and asthma is a good example, actually. That's a massive overactive immune response to things you inhale because the immune system isn't really able to do a good job, I suppose. So a bit of dirt's a good thing is the bottom line, really.
I have 2 pigs at home. Maybe I should take my little son Dahi and keep him out with them one day a week.
Perfect.
Like
that's right.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Good. So that's great to know. And on that topic, when you talk about asthma as well, I'm curious about allergies.
Yep.
Is allergies... I know there's loads and loads of different allergies, but is it something that we're seeing more of in the world today? Or do we know that for sure? Or is it something that...
Definitely, no. And that's because we're too clean, probably. So modern life meant a lot of cleaning stuff all the time. The allergy goes up like that over the past 30 years. Now, that's one possible. Scientists, of course, being what they're like, are addressing this. Why is the incidence of allergy and asthma going up? The most likely answer now is we're too clean.
Okay.
So a bit of dirt. And in fact, if you go onto a farmyard, even for a few weeks as a child, you pick up enough dirt to train the immune system. And there's evidence for that as well, you see.
I was curious about some things that our body does and why it does it. Like, say if we get a cold or we get some sort of a sniffle and we get a runny nose, or we get a headache, or we get a fever. Is there a reason why we get that? Is that doing something to help our body fight things?
There is one reason. That's your immune system again. So if you're infected, your immune system makes chemicals that increase body temperature in your brain. The set point changes, and now your temperature goes up a little bit. That's really good. The higher temperature makes the immune system work more quickly because it likes a slightly warmer environment and it moves faster, if you like. It's like you're warming up the system, I suppose.
So your body is saying increase the temperature so we can fight.
All life on Earth has a fever. Most life on Earth, you'll see an increase in temperature, you see. So that's one thing. Now, the sniffles are funny. They're being made to get rid of the virus because you'll blow your nose and it's gone, you know. The trouble is the virus likes that. So sometimes symptoms are there. They're driven by the bug to spread. Diarrhea is a good example. Some bacteria cause diarrhea and they spread then through the diarrhea, you see. So some of those symptoms are beneficial to the bacteria and they can be beneficial to us as well, I suppose. So it's a mix of the two, really.
So it's almost like it's a constant fight. It's like the viruses and the bad bacteria are learning how to use your body and then your body is trying to learn how to do things to fight it off. It's like a constant warfare.
And if your immune system goes into overdrive, if it works too hard, then you feel really sick. So much of the symptoms that you get with infectious disease actually being caused by your own immune system going a bit too strongly, you see, and that's not good either. So the immune system, Dan, is like Goldilocks is the best analogy. Not too hot and not too cold. If it's in the middle, it'll fight the infection and you get over it and then you're better, you know. And very importantly, the immune system remembers and you don't get reinfected. That's the beauty of the immune system in a way. Once bitten, twice shy kind of thing, you know. And the reason for that is the troops are now trained. They've seen the enemy.
Yes.
They get rid of it, and then if the enemy re-emerges, they're now killers. They can fight the infection and stop it taking off in your body, and that's the essence of what the immune system does.
And if I take a vaccine, is that kind of like training the troops, essentially? Is that what it is?
Exactly, Dan. And what a vaccine is a weakened form of the germ, okay? In other words, you don't want to get the infection. So scientists very cleverly can take a virus like this and weaken it in some way with a chemical maybe, or just take the spike, in fact, in isolation, the spike thing.
Yeah.
That goes into your body and the immune system now recognizes that.
Okay.
Now, when the bad guy comes along full of spikes,
Yes.
there's killer troops that recognize that spike
Okay.
and kill the virus on contact. And that's exactly what a vaccine does. So vaccines are, I suppose the way to put it is, they're weakened, or we use the word attenuated forms of the pathogen, and they train the immune system to fight should the bad guy come along.
Okay, cool. Well, it seems that, that makes me feel hopeful that we'll be able to kind of come up with a vaccine for, I suppose, the COVID-19 virus that we're looking at the moment.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you a little question about that. Is this whole scenario we're in with COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, coronavirus, I'm not sure the correct terminology, but is this situation something that we've never, ever, ever seen before?
Well, it's a brand new virus, you see.
Yes.
It never jumped. It came from bats, remember. Lived quite happily in bats, by the way. The bats could tolerate it, you see, and they could live with it. Jumped into us and we can't tolerate it. You know what I mean? In other words, our immune system really goes crazy.
Yeah.
Brand new virus, never seen before. And suddenly the immune system now goes into overdrive. And that's why people die, sadly, because they get too strong an immune response. They get sick, you see. It's a brand new virus. Now, of course, if it was an old virus, that we would have built up immunity over, time to it, I suppose.
Yes.
And we would have more protection against it, you see. Brand new, we've no immunity. And that's why it's such a problem.
Okay, and would you be hopeful that with all of the research that's going on around the world, that in the coming months and years that we will be able to learn everything we need to know about something like the coronavirus, and we'll be able to fight it?
Well, if ever there's an example of science, I mean, we've learned a huge amount about the immune system over the past 30 years.
Yes.
And now we can use that knowledge to understand more about the virus and how our immune system might handle it. That's really helpful, let's face it. Secondly, then, understanding more about the virus itself, we can design drugs to block it. And then the vaccine hope is there. Now, when the vaccine emerges, it will be against the spike. That's the main vaccines.
Yes.
And there's 180 vaccines now in development, incredibly. They will get us out of this, Dan, eventually. We're optimistic.
Okay.
Now, we don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
There's many a slip, by the way, on the road to a vaccine. So we've got to be cautious about this, you see, because we're not sure. But certainly, we're all of the view that science will beat it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that, Luke. We're going to let you get back to work fighting that
creature.
That creature that you have there. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks so much to everyone for tuning in. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next one.